Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June Ordinary Council meeting. It being the allotted hour, I declare the Ordinary Council meeting open at 2 minutes past 6. Welcome all. Kaya Marman, Kaya Yoga, Kaya Bridie, Yana Nook, Nalak Karij Winjialak Nini, Nalak Karij Nija Buja Bal, Wajak Nunga Buja Nalak Nini, Kura Kura Nijie Burawan. The town of Bassendean acknowledges the Wajak people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the region. Councillors, have you all signed the Declaration of Civic Duty and Responsibility? Yes? Okay. So, for the benefit of the audience, I'll read out what the councillors sign at the beginning of each meeting. I make this declaration in good faith and declare that I will duly, faithfully, honestly and with integrity fulfil the duties of my office for all the people in the town of Bassendean according to the best of my judgment and ability. Now, tonight we have one councillor who will be coming in online, Councillor Jermaine Burke. I'll just confirm, Councillor Burke, can you hear us clearly?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, I'll ask if there are any requests for leave of absence. Councillor Ames?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. For next month, between the 20th and the 30th of July.
Okay. Councillor Burke, I can't see your hand up. Okay, so we have one request for leave of absence. Can I call for a mover?
Oh, sorry, Madam.
Sorry.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I did actually send one into the CEO a little while ago, but leave of absence for the 21st of July.
Okay. So can I have a mover for those leaves of absence? Councillor Carter, a seconder. Councillor Polifka. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Councillors, declarations of interest. Now I call for any declarations of interest. I note that I have some disclosures of interest forms in front of me. So I've got Councillor Ames, and this is a proximity interest to one of the parks that is under consideration for tonight. And I also have Councillor Long. You have a impartiality interest to 12.4. Yep. Okay. So are there any other councillors with a declaration of interest? Councillor Burke?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I did complete one last week.
Okay, so this is also in relation to 12.4, the parks? Dogs
Correct,
on
yes.
lead?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So, Councillor, I think next time you're in, if you could fill in one for this particular meeting as well.
I have. Sorry,
Thank you.
I did it last week.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, already completed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And councillors, Councillor Carter, would you have a proximity interest to Bindaring?
Well, as Bindaring is still not a whole park and there's a series of different lots, the lot opposite me is only a tiny part of it and doesn't form a whole. So I've actually requested information about this previously and was told that until it is amalgamated under 4A scheme into one park, I don't have a proximity interest.
Okay. Thank you.
Take that as truth.
Okay, thank you very much.
And to be wind up before A scheme.
That would be excellent to wind up the 4A scheme. Okay. So with that, councillors, we will move on to deputations. Now we've received one deputation from Carol Seidel and Val Humphrey. If you would like to come up to the microphone, if someone could make sure that the microphone is turned on.
Madam Mayor, can I just advise that councillors have received an email of the presentation, so you might want to follow along on your laptops. Thank you.
And there's a chair there for you.
We're ready to go.
Yes.
Um,
So if you just state your name and address.
Carol Seidel, 55 Broadway, Bassendean.
And also noting that the clock up the top there will tell you your timeline.
Yeah, we'll try to keep it to 10. We're trying to
Okay.
be good. Okay, last Friday, Belle Humphries and myself attended a forum on dewatering and drainage issues that are impacting on long-term property owners in the Swan Valley. We heard from an expert on hydrology from Uni WA, plus 4 landowners dealing with flooding caused by the new housing development. How the City of Swan are slow in responding to drainage issues, the failure of ministers and government departments to address what's really taking place, having millions of litres of water being pumped out into drainage systems, into the Swan, and ending up in the ocean because of the construction of roof-to-roof housing in the northeast corridor urban growth area that includes places like Dayton, Brabham and Henley Brook. At the end of the day, ratepayers have to pay more rates to fix the flooding of dewatering issues that are happening in the Swan Valley. Landowners are seeing trees dying at an alarming rate. The high cost of pumping flood water off their property is expensive and it's not solving the cause of the problem. Their properties are no longer viable. Belle and myself intend to go and see the local member to discuss what's taking place, and we also know that Bassendean will have similar issues on a smaller scale that need to be addressed. Okay?
Thank you.
And I
Val, your
understand that
name and address.
Val Humphrey, 127A, Whitfield Street. Now, we'll assume that everyone understands the long-term benefit of mature trees and the tree canopy, and we'll go from there. Our concerns in this issue really started with the apparent impacts of dewatering at the Bassendean Oval to install footings for the 4 new nightlight poles. Dewatering the excavations went on far longer than expected, for months, and seemed to be the cause of the death of 2 trees across the road in Christie Park, which has an underground sump, has an underground sump, and also later the sudden demise of a tall tree, which was significant tree 21, near the light pole on the northeast corner, that seemed to be linked to the dewatering. Can we be sure? No, we can't, because there was no before data collected about the water quality, and there wasn't any during data either during the long period. We had our suspicions, but that's all they could be. So we have recommendations following on from that. But moving on to slide 2, if you're following the thing that we sent out, we need to learn from the experiences that Carol was talking about with the suburbs of Dayton, Caversham, Brabham, Henley Brook and many other areas that are in the northeast corridor that are coming up for new development, to better understand the sorts of risks we could face when drainage designs are approved for new developments. One of the problems being that they only deal with the drainage within the new development site and don't take into account the impacts into adjoining lower-lying areas with different soil types that do not have the capacity to absorb large volumes of runoff. It's a new problem, really, for intensive development in Western Australia. Apparently, standards for drainage are designed on the capacity of the deep sands of the Swan Coastal Plain over to the west to absorb runoff, and which is not the right recipe for the more complex soil types closest to the river. The situation has become cumulatively worse since 2015, so at first it wasn't recognised, and there are no solutions in the pipeline that look like they're going to fix the problem anytime soon, which is terrible for the people in that district, and I think that it is relevant to us. So that got me thinking about our draft structure plan. So our draft structure plan, which is our slide 3, just to remind you where that is, we've just been asked to comment on it for the town centre, where the water table has always been high as the Nangara Mound groundwater passes through on its way to the river. And that illustration there, it's taken from the strategy, shows the distance to groundwater on the map. And I couldn't resist putting in slide 4, which is a wonderful photograph that's in our local history collection, taken in 1939, that illustrates the passage of water from across the oval to the water, towards the river, with not much drainage in place. And note that in this photo there's no Briggs Street drain that takes away a lot of the difficult water. That doesn't appear until the 1961 aerial photograph, from Landgate. But back to the structure plan. Right, this is the heavy page. This is page 40 of the about drainage, taken from the structure plan itself. The highlighted areas in yellow are basically all say that the existing infrastructure is deficient and at capacity, so inadequate to meet heavy downpours predicted with climate change. It comments on known areas of localised flooding and recommends targeted upgrades to be implemented incrementally, and we all know where some of those are, some of the puddles around the town centre. Our concern is that as the development applications trickle in, they will be dealt with incrementally in an isolated way that could easily miss some opportunities to create better outcomes for the overall area and possibly cost the town big bucks in remedial action in the future, just like what's happening now with the City of Swan. We think that the precinct plan, and then we follow on just some recommendations that we'd like you to consider, please, when you're considering the precinct plan, which I understand is coming up possibly next month for your consideration or soon. We think that the precinct plan needs to call for an overview, a master plan, or whatever you'd like to call it, a bird's eye view, to get ahead of these issues and increase the capacity of the drainage network in a way that will firstly benefit the tree canopy that we're invested in so strongly in, and identify opportunities to manage stormwater more efficiently, according to the best practice in water-sensitive urban design, such as fully mountable curbs along reserves, etc. But be aware of the pitfalls in the Swan that have been identified in the Swan Valley, and I could talk a lot more about that, but 10 minutes is 10 minutes. Haven't got enough time. And the third one is to, based on the experience with the trees, with the light poles in the oval, ensure that all new developments, especially those within the town precincts, will be subject to hydrological geotechnical assessment, dewatering, and during so that water quality is established before any dewatering and during dewatering, and the possibility of the need to include ongoing dewatering after completion, if approved, would be managed well and not lead to unexpected tree deaths. And these things require compliance inspection to be ongoing. This actually is a separate recommendation to the precinct because we think that we need to implement it as a regular condition for development approvals that require dewatering, regardless of whether they're in the precinct or not. Just one of those things. Now, the following 6, 7, 8, 9 slides are all about the dewatering, and I can see that the time's galloping away from me, so perhaps you would just like to read the captions under those to get the picture of what happened there. But the bottom line is that the deaths of 2 trees in Christie Park remain unexplained, possibly blamed on the water that raced down the gutter for months on end, possibly warm and salty, or who knows, we don't know because there was no monitoring. Now, there's a story about let me just see what else I've got to get through here. At the forum that we went to the other day, one of the landowners drew attention to the story at her rural property in Henley Brook, where new deep sewerage was being installed around her property, and very deep trenches were dug and dewatered for many weeks. The works were not monitored by any of the authorities from the city or from Dwyer, and best practice hadn't been followed. Mature trees started to show signs of stress and started to die. An arborist was consulted and prescribed how many litres of water would be needed to keep the trees going during the dewatering, but that proved difficult because her property isn't on the mains yet. When work was finally complete, the water table was allowed to refill. Samples were sent for analysis and found to be high in salt and polluted with diesel, and she lost 20 trees. It's just a story that it means that oversight over dewatering is a big issue, for people who are trying to maintain trees. Now, slide 10 is one of my favourite things at the moment, which is the drainage map from the town planning, from the town of Bassendean's website, which is great. It shows where the drains are and gives you the chance to see which way the water flows, and perhaps we could be looking at that with opportunities to introduce water-sensitive urban design as, you know, roads get rebuilt or, you know, maintenance needs to be done.
So Val, I'm going to ask you to wind up.
Okay, I'm not too much more now. So we need to look for where there are opportunities to slow the flow so it's useful for the tree canopy. We require geotechnical report on hydrology to be part of the approval process for all development in high water table areas, given Swan's recent experiences, areas likely to have higher groundwater levels in the future. We need to manage these risks, big picture, and not just individual developments as they trickle in. We'll be left with the bill if we don't. And one last thing is that since we started to put this presentation together, we've learned from DBCA's hydrologists that sea level rise is currently higher than exceeding predictions and is now up to 0.5 of a centimetre, half a centimetre a year, which is a lot, and it's exceeding predictions. And this will also affect the water levels around us, particularly Ashfield Flats, Pickering, parts of Bindaring, etc., and increase salinity in groundwater. So, you know, there's interesting times ahead, and it seems that the state government agencies that might oversee this sort of thing are terribly understaffed with an absence of expertise in these areas, and relying on old data which isn't suitable for the mixed soils that you get near the river. Okay. Fine in the Swan Coastal Plain.
So thank you, Val. So,
That's it.
so,
Not even minus 2 minutes.
okay, so thank you very much, ladies.
Okay.
I'm not sure if councillors have got all of this to read anyway, so if you want to reach out and talk to the councillors.
And you we should you
Yep.
should tell them about tomorrow morning's radio.
Oh, yes. Tomorrow, Jan Zek and I think the hydrologist from UniWA and someone else, they're going to be on Nadia's morning program, Talkback Radio, discussing the issues. So if you guys have got time, turn it to the ABC. I think it's now 102.5. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So with that, we'll move on to public statement time. Now, my understanding is that we have a couple of people who would like to present public statements. The first one being Francesco.
Okay.
If you'd state your name and address,
Yep,
Francesco.
Francesco Bellino, 59 First Avenue, Bassendean. Okay, the officer's report identifies the key issue before council as whether the impact on solar access to our property is reasonable. I respectfully ask council to consider the significance of the passive solar design outcome that will be affected by this proposal. Since Western Australia adopted NCC 2022, new homes are required to achieve a minimum 7-star energy rating, together with whole home energy requirements. Our home was assessed and certified as achieving a 7.4-star energy rating. The north-facing living room windows were deliberately incorporated into the design to capture winter sunlight, improve thermal performance, and contribute to achieving that outcome. The original energy compliance report relied upon those passive solar design features. Importantly, the design principles for solar access for adjoining sites exist because the planning system recognises that solar access contributes directly to residential amenity, passive solar performance and energy efficiency. In circumstances where a proposal exceeds the deemed to comply provisions, the design principles become the mechanism through which council determines whether neighbouring solar access and amenity are being appropriately protected. I respectfully ask council to consider whether substantially reducing winter solar access to a dwelling certified as achieving a 7.4-star energy rating is consistent with the objectives of that design principle. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand that your partner would like to actually also do a statement. Mirinda, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, so Mirinda Bellino, 59 First Avenue, Bassendean. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I don't intend to address the arguments that have been presented by Francesco. Instead, I wish to briefly address the practical implications of the proposal and why they're relevant to the matters that council is required to consider this evening. The residential design codes recognise that solar access is important to residential amenity, and that is why the assessment is undertaken on midday, 21st of June, the winter solstice, when sunlight is at its most limited and therefore most valuable. The officer's report confirms that only approximately 30% of our primary north-facing living room window will retain solar access. It also confirms that our alfresco area will be completely overshadowed, and approximately 37% of our backyard will retain solar access. These are not secondary areas of the property. They are the very areas identified within the design principles as deserving protection. Major north-facing openings to habitable rooms and outdoor living spaces. When our home was designed, the north-facing living room windows were deliberately incorporated to maximise winter sunlight and improve energy efficiency. We've also invested significant time, effort and expense establishing a garden and outdoor living area that can be enjoyed throughout the year. My family and I are residents at Bassendean. Like many residents, we support sensible infill development and recognise that growth must occur. What we hope to see is balanced and considered planning outcomes that appropriately weigh both development potential and the amenity of existing residents. Unlike the plans and diagrams before council, the impacts of this decision will form part of our everyday living environment for many years to come. That is why we ask council to carefully consider whether the outcome proposed achieves a fair balance between development and neighbouring amenity. The practical outcome of this proposal is not simply additional overshadow, it's reduced natural light to the principal living areas of the home, reduced passive solar heating during the winter, reduced solar access to outdoor living areas, and substantially reduced winter sunlight to the garden. The question before council is not whether some impact is inevitable. We accept that it is. In fact, our property was already subject to approximately 41.5% overshadowing at the winter solstice as a result of the first dwelling. Our concern has never been that some overshadowing will occur. The question is whether the additional impact proposed by this application is reasonable.
So can I ask you to wind up?
Yep. We respectfully submit that it is not. For those reasons, we ask council to refuse the application. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. And I would ask if, I believe that the other proponent was looking at a deputation.
Statement.
Yes.
I think that was declined.
Yeah, but you were looking at doing a statement, were you not?
Yes.
Would you like to come and do a statement? So, and if you indicate the name of the company, etc.
Certainly. Ben Doyle from Planning Solutions, 251 St George's Terrace, Perth.
Again, if you keep an eye on the time.
Yes, thank you. I would ask if you could be a little bit patient. I will keep it to as close to 2 minutes as I can. Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the owners of 59A First Avenue, and we're pleased that this is recommended for approval. Look, we acknowledge that the adjoining neighbours are unhappy with the shadow impacts of the proposal, and that there's naturally some sympathy for that, and we are sympathetic as well. But it is not fair to place the onus on their neighbour, our client, to provide greater setbacks than the R codes deem to comply, or to only build a single-storey house due to their own design choices with their house. This application complies in full with the built form requirements of the R codes. Setbacks, height, open space, landscape and visual privacy all meet the deem to comply. Now, due to the east-west orientation of the lots, the amount of shadow cast onto 59 requires a design principles assessment. And so you are considering the reasonableness of that impact. Now, the adjoining house design contributes to its own solar access challenges. The dining room and living room windows and the alfresco roof are set back 1 to 1.5 metres from their northern boundary. That is the minimum allowable setback under the R codes, and it is simply inadequate to maintain solar access to those parts of the dwelling. The fence overshadows 30% of that window. Now, the neighbours appear to have built this biggest single-storey house they can fit on their property. It goes from boundary to boundary and covers most of the lot with the minimum allowable side boundary setbacks. Right? And that is their right. They are perfectly entitled to do that. That is under the R codes, no problem. But if they choose to do that, as they have, it is not fair or reasonable to then require their neighbours to constrain their development to accommodate their own design choices. Ultimately, you need to decide what's reasonable and what's fair. Now, the R codes acknowledge that a long, narrow, east-west oriented lot will be susceptible to shadow impacts. The design of our proposed development is fully compliant, as I've said. So we say that it is clearly reasonable and that the shadow that results from that building is also, therefore, reasonable. Now, as to fairness, okay, the neighbour has maximised the footprint of their house, and they can do that, as is their right. But a consequence of that choice is that those windows on that northern side that are only set back 1 and 1.5 metres from the boundary will be impacted by overshadowing.
Okay, I'm going to
And
ask you to wind up.
Certainly. The only way that can be avoided is by substantial reduction of the building that can be achieved on our site. Okay, and we say that's not fair. So we understand the sympathy, but we ask that decisions are made on the planning framework and on the basis of principles, not individual sympathy. Thanks
Okay,
very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else would like to do a statement? Mr. Grau, if you would like to state your name and address, please.
Michael Raw, 44 Wilson Street, Bassendean. Agenda items, transparency statement under 12.12 and confirmation of minutes. The minutes from the last OCM, which you're about to approve, include a deputation I submitted prior to the last OCM. Minutes need to be an actual reflection of the meeting, so I'm suggesting an amendment. The website made a promise that my deputation will be included in the minutes, but a higher order prevails. A casual reader might conclude on reading the minutes that councillors considered my provided deputation prior to their vote. To correct this, I have prepared a draft amendment as follows. The council notes that an application for deputation was received by the Chief Executive Officer from resident Michael Graw prior to the meeting. The application was declined administratively by the CEO, was not considered part of the meeting, and was not relied on or formally brought into the meeting or council deliberations, end quote. In addition, a number of people at the meeting spoke about the accuracy of the officer's report, so here is a draft amendment. That the minutes be confirmed subject to noting that quotation of an elector's transcript in item 16.1 was truncated mid-sentence with the original text removed and an exclamation mark inserted at the break where no such punctuation existed. The transparency draft includes the phrase commercial in confidence, a phrase not evident in the 1995 Act, and the draft excludes other specific requirements from the Act like tendered prices, etc. It admits that indicating that closing a meeting is a decision. It confuses the separation of powers in the reader by stating transparency is the CEO's responsibility. Under sections 5.41 and 2.7, operational staff manage day-to-day work, while governing and policy compliance sit solely with the council. The IAP2 is a spectrum and not a defined point, which means you can't actually say we're compliant if you're not measuring where you're compliant on the spectrum. So your options are to, 1, use a motherhood statement only and link to the relevant state laws. Number 2, adopt the state standard from the DLGC. They have an actual summary of it and a standard summary, which would be applicable across Western Australia. And thirdly, and my last point, you could defer the item and formally apply to the department to appoint a coach in the form of a monitor.
Mr. Grau, do you have a copy of that for the staff?
Yes, I can provide one.
Thank you. Because then perhaps exclamation marks won't be missed or put in the wrong place. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have any other Francesco, may I ask, is this a different point?
Different points, because I didn't have a deputation, but reduced it as much as I could. I would just have like another minute.
A minute. 1 minute? Okay, 1 minute, and I'm holding you to that. Thank you. It's not normal to actually give you a second chance.
I appreciate it. I'll be very quick. Francesco Valeno, 59 First Avenue. I'll also like Council to consider another additional matter. When the first dwelling was approved, a significant factor relied upon both the town and the applicant was that the north-facing living room window and outdoor living area of our property remained protected. Those findings were central to the justification for approving the first dwelling. It is also relevant that the first dwelling already resulted in approximately 41.5% overshadowing of our property, at which Souls is substantially above the 25% deemed to comply benchmark. That outcome was accepted because those key areas remained protected. The current application seeks to further concession, which substantially impacts those same areas. Respectfully, ask Council to consider what has changed. If those areas were important enough to justify approval of the first dwelling, why are they no longer important when considering the second dwelling? The officer's report identifies the key issue before Council as whether the resulting impact is reasonable. Councillors, this application is not about whether development should occur, it is about whether this particular outcome is reasonable. Respectfully submit that it is not. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Francesco, for keeping it short. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to move us on to public question time. I will state that Nonnie Jepperson from Barton Parade did submit a very short statement regarding 12.4 supportive of the recommendation for Midnarrick Park. Now, we also have some questions from Nonnie Jepperson, which are going to appear in the minutes. The answers are going to be provided in the minutes. Is that correct, Mr. CEO?
That is correct,
Right.
and the recipient will receive those by email tomorrow.
Yeah. And we also have some questions from Renee McLennan. Again, those questions will be emailed, the answers will be emailed tomorrow, and the questions and the answers will appear in the minutes of the meeting. Now, generally, we allow question time is to be directed, questions to be directed myself. Members of the public are entitled to ask up to 2 questions before other members of the public are invited to ask their questions. 15 minutes will be allocated to questions by members of the public unless the council by resolution decides otherwise. As presiding person, I may decide to accept or reject any question. With that decision being final, I might request the CEO to respond to a question, or I might take a question on notice. A written response will be provided by the town as soon as possible. Okay, so I will ask if there are members of the audience who would like to ask questions. Again, I think I've got some questions here from Francesco, and yes, Francesco, I've got some questions from you.
Francesco Valeno, 59 First Avenue. When the first dwelling was approved, a significant factor relied upon both the town and the applicant was the north-facing living room window and outdoor living area of 59 First Avenue remain protected. The first dwelling already resulted in approximately 41.5% overshadowing of the property at the winter solstice, substantially above the 25% deemed to comply benchmark. And the outcome was accepted because those key areas remain protected. The current application seeks to further concession, which substantially impacts those areas. Given the officer's report acknowledges that council's task is to determine whether the resulting impact is reasonable, what has changed to justify supporting a second dwelling that now impacts those protected areas, and if this cumulative outcome remains acceptable? At which point would council consider the impact on neighbouring solar amenity unreasonable?
Mr. CEO, would you prefer to have the officer respond to that question? Yep, okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you for the question. There have not been any significant changes in the planning framework. However, each development application is required to be assessed on its own merits against the applicable provisions of the residential design codes. both instances, the applications were required to be assessed against the design principles with respect to overshadowing, with respect to impact on solar access neighbours, your north-facing windows, solar panels in outdoor living area. The R codes do not establish a single threshold at which solar impacts automatically become unreasonable. Instead, where a proposal does not satisfy the deemed to comply requirements, we assess it against the relevant design principle. The extent of overshadowing that may be considered reasonable when considered against the design principles will be dependent upon the context and individual circumstances. As a result, it would not be appropriate to speculate on a hypothetical threshold for unreasonableness outside the context of a specific development proposal and its detailed assessment. In relation to this application, the first proposal that we're referring to and the overshadowing extent was the proportionate share of its adjoining the boundary. It did not overshadow the major opening to the kitchen living room area or the outdoor living area, and therefore was acceptable. In this instance, we acknowledge that there is some overshadowing impacts on those areas, but our consideration is that it is a reasonable reasonable level of overshadowing. The R codes do not prohibit overshadowing on a neighbouring property. It's just whether the extent of it is reasonable or not.
Okay. And you have a second question, sir?
Since Western Australia adopted NCC 2022, new homes are required to achieve a minimum 7-star energy rating together with whole of home energy requirements. Our home was assessed and certified as achieving a 7.4-star energy rating. The energy compliance report relied upon passive solar design features, including north-facing living area and glazing intended to capture winter sunlight. How has Council considered the impact of approving a development that substantially reduces winter solar access to a dwelling specifically designed and certified to achieve those outcomes? And how is that outcome consistent with the design principle for solar access for adjoining sites, which exists to protect neighbouring solar access and amenity?
Again.
Again, through you, Madam Mayor. Neither the NCC nor the residential design codes provide an entitlement for a landowner to retain a particular existing level of solar access. The R codes do not prohibit overshadowing. Rather, they seek to ensure that development does not unreasonably impact the solar access and amenity of the neighbouring property. In our consideration, we acknowledge that the winter solstice also represents the worst case overshadowing scenario. On this basis, then, we considered the following outcomes to be reasonable. 30% or 2 square metres of the major opening on the neighbouring dwelling will continue receiving direct solar access at 12 p.m. on the winter solstice. This is a large window, 2 square metres. A major opening is from 1 square metre, so you've got 2 major openings equivalent in terms of the window space. 30% of the neighbouring landscape backyard receiving direct solar access at 12 p.m. on the winter solstice. And 100% of the neighbouring property's solar collectors will continue to receive direct sunlight at 12 p.m. on the winter solstice, ensuring the continued operation of the solar energy system and preserving this aspect of the dwelling's energy efficiency performance. Having regard to these outcomes, the administration considers that the proposal does not unreasonably result in an unreasonable loss of solar access or amenity to the adjoining property, and that's the reasons for the administration's recommendation for support for the application.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's the last you'll hear from me, I promise.
Thank you. And Mirinda, I believe that you also had a question.
Again, sorry to take up all your time about this, but it's a big deal for us. So, all right. So, yeah, Mirinda Valino, 59 First Avenue, Bassendean. So, State Planning Policy 7.0 provides that good design should ensure development is appropriate to its setting and mitigates negative amenity impacts on adjoining properties. Given the acknowledged impacts on solar access to our living room window, al fresco and backyard, and the evidence that alternative design approaches were available but not pursued, how has Council concluded that the scale and massing of the proposed development appropriately responds to its setting and mitigates negative amenity impacts on adjoining land?
Again, Mr. Snadden.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Council has not yet made a decision on the application. That will be tonight. The proposed development complies with respect to the deemed to comply requirements with respect to building height, setbacks, open space, and therefore the administration's view that the scale and massing is considered acceptable and consistent with the expected density coding applicable for the subject property and the density that the development is being proposed at. The impact of overshadowing on the adjoining property is the key consideration for this application, and for the reasons previously just discussed and as outlined in the report, the administration is supportive of the proposed development.
Thank you. Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and so I believe you wanted to do a question. And again, if you can state your name and address, that would be great.
My name is Michael Graw from 44 Wilson Street, Bassendean. And look, my question's a bit loose here, but over the past 3 ordinary council meetings, I've submitted an application in writing to the CEO to present a deputation. And I've sought clarity on why they've been rejected. But when I read 6.10 of the Local Law 2020, when I write to the CEO, they have these 2 options. They may either A, approve the request and invite the deputation to attend a meeting of council, or B, refer the request to council to decide by simple majority whether or not to receive the deputation. So my question is, like, I've tried to work through this. I'm just trying to understand on what legal basis my deputations have been rejected when there is no provision under this law for rejections. And so I'm sort of looking, where is the legal reason for being rejected?
So, Mr. Grau, if you actually go online, which I know that you did, and it was late this afternoon, the requests are that you provide your deputation in full online. It's also requested that you provide your deputation by 12 noon. Now, none of those things happened today, but I will refer to Mr. CEO. Did you want to provide a response? A further response?
No, Madam Mayor, apart from the fact that Michael's been provided with all the information he needs, there's a department, he can ring the hotline and speak to somebody at the department if he's not happy, but you are correct. He missed the deadline today by 3.5 hours, didn't provide the deputation in full, and he's turned up here tonight and said what he wants to say anyway, so I can't see what the issue is.
Thank you. You have a second question? Yes.
Yep, sure. On December 16, 2025, Council considered item 16.1 behind closed doors, and in the public minutes recorded, Resolution OCM 2025-12-16/7 as, quote, Council voted in favour of the offerer's recommendation contained in the confidential report, end quote. On February 26, 2026, the CEO executed a public disposal notice under section 3.58. Given that Regulation 11C and D of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996 strictly mandates that the public minutes must include the actual details of each motion moved and the details of each decision made, what specific section of the Act did the CEO rely on to determine that the resolution listed above provide the legally required details and public head of power for the CEO to subsequently launch the land disposal notice on February 26, 2026? Here's a copy.
Thanks for taking on notice.
Thank you. Okay.
He's not interested.
So, councillors, I don't believe there are any more questions coming from the audience. Okay. There are no petitions. So, councillors, we'll move on to item 9.1, confirmation of the minutes. That the minutes of the following meetings be received and confirmed as a true and correct record. That was the Ordinary Council meeting on the 26th of May 2026. Can I have a mover? Councillor Long, a seconder. Councillor Polifka. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you. There's no business deferred from the previous meeting. So item 11, the council notes the minutes from the external committees received within the reporting period. And do I have a... There is none. No, there's none. It's just in the Mayor's notes here, and I didn't think there were any, so thank you very much. We'll move on past that. Okay, so we now move to the items on block. Okay, so councillors, I just want to check if there are any items to come out of en bloc. 12.3 was originally in en bloc, but my understanding is that it has been, it's still in en bloc. Well, that's my printed copy, but it was changed this afternoon. 12.2. So 12.2, which that's last week's. That away. Okay, so 12.2, we're removing that. Councillors, are there any other items to be removed from en bloc? Okay. I've got it here as being in the reports.
So this is mine from last week.
Yeah.
That's going up.
Okay. Okay, so 12.12, the transparency statement, was being moved up to en bloc.
Madam Mayor, can we just have a very clear understanding about what items are in en bloc?
Yes,
so we can
please.
vote accordingly,
Yep.
please?
Okay, so I just don't have that listed here. Okay, so I've got 12.3 draft community safety and crime prevention strategy in en bloc. I've got 12.6 accounts paid May 2026. I've got 12.7 monthly financial report May 2026. 12.8 I've got black spots funding and low cost urban road safety projects. 12.9 Bassendean Local Emergency Management Committee 10th of June. 12.10 Audit Risk and Improvement Committee 10th of June. 12.11 which is the privacy policy, and 12.12 the transparency statement is now going up to en bloc, correct? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so councillors. So that's 8 items in en bloc. Are we all clear on what we're voting on? Do I have a mover? Councillor Ames. A seconder? Councillor Long. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. So we'll now move on to the items to be considered tonight. So the first item is 12.2, which is lot 524, number 59A, First Avenue, Bassendean, 2 grouped dwellings, 1 existing. So, Mr CEO, would you like Mr Snadden to provide a little bit of an overview on this?
Look, Madam Mayor, no, I won't. I think we've had a briefing session that was dedicated almost entirely to this project, and tonight, again, in question time and deputation time, it's monopolised the meeting. So I think everybody's informed. They've had another week. There's been questions back and forth to the Manager of Planning. I would prefer that it was opened up to debate and to voting.
Well, first of all, I'll ask councillors. Councillor Plifka.
I just had a question. So for the Manager of Planning. So we've heard that this application was fully compliant. I understand that to mean fully compliant in all aspects except as to overshadowing. If a matter complies with the deemed to comply provisions of the R codes, does that come before council, or is it simply passed administratively?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if the development was completely deemed to comply as a group dwelling development, there would have been no need for consultation, and there would have been no objection, and we would have dealt with this under delegation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillors, further questions? Okay, councillors, we have an officer's recommendation, but my understanding is that Councillor Plifka, you were looking to move something.
Yeah, look, if nobody wanted to move the officer's recommendation, I would look to...
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Okay, so we have a mover for the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder for the officer's recommendation? So that falls away. Councillor Plifka, if you could actually articulate what you were proposing. I did see the emails going through yesterday.
I don't know, the content can simply be taken from the agenda, so page 18 of the agenda. So the alternate would be to refuse the approval, and the reasons that I would advance for that are those provided at page 18 of the agenda. So the officer has taken the trouble of preparing the reasons for that.
Okay. Is everyone clear on what Councillor Polifka is proposing? Okay. So Councillor Polifka, Councillor Ames, do you want to ask a question?
No, I'd just like to second Councillor Polifka's
So Councillor
recommendation.
Polifka, you're moving the alternative?
Yes, so the alternative as articulated in the
Okay.
agenda, and so that would be for the refusal.
Okay, so Councillor Ames, you're seconding that? Okay, we have anyone against? We will enter into debate. So Councillor Polifka, if you would like to open debate.
Yeah, look, certainly. And thank the Manager for Planning for preparing this document. As we've heard by the professional advocating on behalf of the proponents, this does, given that it's come before us, come down to what is reasonable. Had it have been within the 25%, then it would have been passed administratively. That having not occurred, this has come before us. As to what is reasonable, look, reasonable minds can differ on that. Again, I thank the Manager for Planning for preparing both the recommendation and the alternate. For the reasons that have been articulated in the agenda for the alternate, I would commend the refusal. So that's points 1 through 6 on page 18 of the agenda.
Councillor Ames.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through, just like to reinforce Councillor Polifka's information, as well as to thank the Officer for planning to provide this alternative recommendation, which obviously is the refusal. I'd also like to thank everyone that's been speaking on behalf of this, both for and against. That's our role as council, to be able to ensure that we can take all sides and adjudicate appropriately. So I'd like to back Councillor Polifka's information. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor John?
While I sympathise with the family's concern, my focus is on what serves the needs of the whole community. This is a sensible development, and that is reflected in the officer's original recommendation to approve. We need more people to build two-storey houses and multiple dwellings like this. The fact that we have to consider this application is odd, and as was discussed in your question, if it hadn't been for the overshadowing, it wouldn't have come to us at all. It would have been handled in delegation. While I acknowledge the frustration, I do not think overshadowing compares to the housing shortage affecting every West Australian, and every level of government should be doing all that it can to get houses built right now. A review undertaken in May had only 6 long-term rentals available in Bassendean, 1.8 short-term rentals for each. We can and should do more in this housing crisis. This is why I was supportive of the original recommendation. Government is about choices. We can block housing or we can get housing built. We cannot advocate that we want infill and more housing and then knock back housing developments as reasonable as two-storey homes. And I ask, can we really defend spending tens of thousands of dollars defending that decision in the SAT? I have heard debate around this table that it is not reasonable for ratepayers to subsidise the cost of a service to a minority group. In that case, I would say it's not reasonable to risk ratepayer money on an unsound SAT case. We are within 20 minutes of the CBD and have 3 train stations. Two-storey housing should be normal in our town. We are an inner city suburb where people want to live. I do not want our town to have a reputation as a gated community at the expense of new families. A great local government does everything in its power to be a better place. That is why I oppose the refusal and support the approval of this application.
Thank you. Councillors for, Councillor Long.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, just a statement I have here, and responding to Councillor John's statement, there already is a 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom development on that block. And I think that is a good example of infill occurring in the town of Bassendean, and we do have to strike a balance. Look, I'd like to acknowledge all the information provided by the residents of 59 and also the proponents of development at 59A, and also especially to commend the residents at 59 for doing what many people do not or cannot attempt, which is building a very energy efficient home and achieving a 7-star rating. That's actually very difficult to do on a small residential block. And in this case, although their home is not a perfect example of a solar passive architecture, it nevertheless attempts to incorporate those principles. So I think that's really good. Proposed development at 59A significantly fails the R code specifications for overshadowing, 45% versus a target of 25%. And in particular, the main living window has its solar access reduced to just 30% at midday on the winter solstice, and that overshadowing will actually get worse immediately after midday. I'm not going to belabor the point, but obviously we're now talking about design principles. I actually disagree with the officer's report that solar access to 59 First Avenue is sufficiently protected by the proposed development. As well as failing the R codes, it fails the design principles, part 1, overshadowing of major openings to living spaces, and part 2, overshadowing of private and communal open spaces. So I can't support the development in its current form.
Thank you. Any other councillors to debate against? For? For or against? Councillor Plifka, you may close.
Look, this is a relatively narrow point, not looking to extend it to a debate over housing quantity as opposed to quality, just looking purely at what has come before us, why it's come before us in that it has exceeded the 25% which would be deemed to comply, the design considerations that Councillor Long has mentioned, and to say that in terms of this, confident in this being arguable and happy to see a determination made in the SAT, which is a no-cost jurisdiction, no legal costs are going to be awarded against the town, potentially. So in terms of this, happy to move the refusal and to note that Francesco and Miranda are a young family in Bassendean.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor Politica's refusal of the application, please raise your hands. So we've got Councillor Ames, Councillor Burke, Councillor Carter, Councillor Long, Councillor Politica and Councillor Hamilton. And all those against, we have Councillor John. Okay, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we will now move on to (12.4) dog control on, off lead and prohibited areas. Now, again, I would ask Mr. CEO, would you prefer staff member to director to provide more information on this? Councillor Long, please return to your seat. You do not leave to engage with the gallery during an OCM, so please refrain from doing that. Okay, so, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on to 12.4 dog control on, off lead and prohibited areas. Mr. CEO, do we have more information to be provided by the administration?
Yes, Madam Mayor, but only until Councillor Burke and Councillor Ames vacate the room, and then we can...
Thank you. Thank you. So, Councillor Burke, don't know if you want to go and make yourself a coffee and come back to your screen shortly?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Can I just ask maybe if someone just texts me when you're finished?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So the CEO will organise for Councillor Burke to be texted after we've come to a decision.
She has to leave the meeting and then rejoin the meeting.
Sorry.
She'll need to disconnect from the meeting.
Okay, she may not even be in the room anymore to actually hear that. Apologies.
That's right. Choice.
Yep, I actually understand the point that you've made. Apologies with that. It's good pickup. Thank you very much. Okay, right. Coming back to, do we want the administration to provide more information?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I might just get the Manager of Planning to quickly do a high-level overview of this item before we refer it to Council for voting.
Okay.
Thank you, CEO. So this report is for Council to consider community feedback during the public consultation on the town's dog exercise areas and their designations. The consultation was undertaken for 28 days and attracted 121 submissions, with most respondents supportive of the existing mix of on-lead, off-lead and dog-prohibited areas. While there was strong demand for additional and larger off-lead spaces, particularly at reserves such as Ashfield Reserve, Bassendean Oval, Hamilton Street, Iverson Place, Jubilee Reserve and 3rd Avenue. Submissions also highlighted concerns regarding responsible dog ownership, environmental protection, conflicts with sporting and recreational uses, and interactions between dogs and children near playgrounds. The administration recommends Council retain and publish the existing dog area designations for a majority of the reserves, including retaining Point Reserve as a dog prohibited area and maintaining on-lead status at environmentally sensitive locations such as Bindaring Park and BIC Reserve. However, it is recommended that further targeted consultation and investigation be undertaken for Ashfield Reserve, Bassendean Oval, Hamilton Street, Iverson Place, Jubilee Reserve and 3rd Avenue, where there appears to be community support for potential changes. The recommendation to Council reflects this. There are 2 recommendations for Council's consideration. One is for the adoption of the designations, which is an absolute majority. The second pertains to a simple majority to acknowledge the administration will undertake further consultation for those reserves. And there's also a recommendation investigating opportunities to better separate playgrounds from dog exercise areas through fencing and or other infrastructure improvements as part of the town's public open space strategy review.
Thank you very much. Okay, so councillors, questions? Councillor Plivka.
At the briefing session, we discussed the importance of signage, and I think there was general consensus that the town would be looking to revisit that. Would signage be captured by, I suppose, Officer Recommendation 2, Lim 3, where you talk about the provision of fencing and other appropriate infrastructure, or do we need to specifically mention signage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm comfortable that would be covered. In terms of signage as well, the report talks to that we will review and upgrade signage where necessary as part of our normal asset renewal processes.
Yep, well, as long as we're including that in the recommendation to allow that to occur, I'm satisfied with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Thank you. I have a question.
Yeah, your microphone's not on.
Oh, sorry about that. My question is that is it possible to limit dogs, even dogs on lead, during certain specific times, such as nesting, breeding, in areas that we wish to rehabilitate for our wildlife?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we can. There are provisions within the Dog Act that enable this.
Follow-up question, Madam Mayor, thank you. If there is provisions under the Dog Act to allow this, how would we manage that, because it's not within that report?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's a process outlined in the Dog Act where we would need to propose those designations in terms of those dog prohibited times, and follow essentially the same process that we followed in this regard, give notice, bring a report back to Council and then publish those times and restrictions if that was deemed appropriate.
Thank you very much.
Just following on.
Thank you. Yes?
So just further to Councillor Carter's question, so under the Dog Act, it's section 33D2A, so dogs are prohibited from chasing wildlife. What we're doing here in terms of allowing dogs off lead, that doesn't trump the Dog Act. The Dog Act would still apply, so if there were dogs that were off lead and behaved themselves, it wouldn't be a problem, whereas if there was a dog that off lead and couldn't behave itself, then that would still attract the application of the Dog Act in that regard. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct. A dog in an off-lead area would still need to be under effective control.
Thank you.
Okay. If you don't mind, I have a question. Noting that there have been instances where playgrounds have been fenced and people have actually used that to contain their dogs within the playground area because it's fenced, do you see issues arising with that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that'd be speculative. I'm not too sure in terms of any evidence of that occurring. I haven't heard anything in that regard. Worst case scenario, it would be an opportunity for council to potentially delineate those areas as dog prohibited areas, and then it would therefore make it an offence.
Okay. Also noting that Sandy Beach, there was a significant effort not to fence that, but rather to actually do a large area of plantings around one side to prohibit or to stop children going through that area to the road. Are there other treatments besides fencing playgrounds that could be considered?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are, and the recommendation speaks to that we'll consider appropriate infrastructure and opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, further questions? Okay. So, councillors, we have the first part of the officer's recommendation that lists the various areas. Do I have a mover for that item? Councillor Plivka. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Carter. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. We now move to the second part, Officer's Recommendation 2, that Council requests the administration undertake further targeted consultation and investigation on the following areas. I won't read it all out. Do we have a mover for that item? Councillor Plivka. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Long. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. So if we can text Councillor Burke. Yep. And could we ask Councillor Ames to return?
Polifka and Carter and Polifka and Long.
So, councillors, if we can wait a few moments for Councillor Burke to come back online, we will be moving to item 12.5, which is the, not 12.5, sorry, 12. Yes, it is 12.5. Eyes are going crazy. Adoption of the 2026-27 annual budget. Thank you very much. So, I'm an idiot.
No, I thought it was good. I thought you must have done it on purpose.
No, I didn't. So Councillor Burke is back online. Okay, I'll put that to the side. Okay, so
Madam Mayor, given the councillors are back in the room, did you want to advise them of the outcome of that?
okay. So I had a proposed amendment for 12.4, the dog control. Unfortunately, it was underneath all the documents and I did not move that. So sincere apologies for that. I have asked the CEO if we could revisit that item. The CEO has indicated no. So we have the proposed amendment for one particular area has not been considered by council because I didn't put it up. So sincere apologies for that. Okay. I'll have a discussion about that in the next few days. Okay, we're moving on to 12.5.
Still didn't advise what the outcome of the...
Oh, the outcome, well, the officer's recommendation. So the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 were moved and unanimously supported. Okay, so 12.5. Mr. CEO, did you...
Yes, Madam Mayor. This is the first time the budget paper in full has been presented to Council. We've had numerous workshops, but I would like the Director of Corporate Services to introduce the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Through the Mayor. This item seeks Council adoption of the 26-27 annual budget. The budget has been developed over several months and reflects significant work by both administration and Council. Since January 26, staff have reviewed service levels, projects, staff requirements, fees and charges and the town's future financial needs. Council participated in 4 budget workshops throughout the process. These workshops considered the Capital Works programme, operational projects, fees and charges, workforce planning, reserves, rates modelling and the overall budget position. Councillors were also provided with project schedules, workshop presentations and regular updates through CEO bulletins throughout the budget process. The budget package before Council includes the statutory budget, schedule of fees and charges, operational projects, programme and capital project programme. The proposed differential rates were advertised for public comment and submissions from the community were considered by Council. Following consideration of this feedback and updated financial information, the proposed overall rates increase was reduced from 5.9 to 4.9. The minimum rate remains unchanged at 1,229. Please also note that 2026-27 is the final year of the Eden Hill Underground Power Project service levy as part of the annual budget process. Council is required to approve the service levy for the scheme. The proposed budget seeks to balance the delivery of services and infrastructure with the town's long-term financial sustainability. The budget provides for estimated rates revenue of 18.2 million and estimated closing surplus of approximately 57,000. The officer's recommendation is Administration Council adopts the 26-27 annual budget, including the schedule of fees and charges, differential rates, capital projects, operational projects, and others are detailed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, questions? Okay, so can I just ask a question about the community feedback on the advertised objects and reasons for differential rating? Were they all provided information to confirm that they were residents of the town, or were some of those anonymous?
Through the Madam Mayor, yes, they have provided the assessment numbers in all the submissions, so we can recognise this residential address.
Okay. And I'm assuming that we will make sure that anonymous submissions cannot be obtained in any of these consultations. Okay. So, councillors, are there further questions? Okay. So we have the officer's recommendation number 1, which is on page 64 of the agenda. And I'm actually going to take my time and read this out. That Council 1, the 2026-27 annual budget adopts pursuant to the provisions of Section 6.2 of the Local Government Act 1995 and Part 3 of the Local Government Financial Management Regulations 1996, the budget for the town of Bassendean for the 26-27 financial year as contained in Attachment 1, which includes the following. A, statement of comprehensive income showing a net surplus for the year of $1,336,969. B, statement of cash flows showing cash at the end of the year of $21,150,865. C, statement of financial activity showing the amount required to be raised from rates of $18,203,314. D, notes to and forming part of the budget. E, transfers to reserve accounts totaling $1,914,528 and from reserve accounts totaling $2,584,594. F, operational projects of $1,079,575 as detailed in attachment 4, confidential. And G, capital expenditure and new initiatives of $10,560,241, inclusive of carried forward projects of $645,353 as detailed in attachment 5, confidential. $10,560,241. Okay. So, councillors, I do have what I consider to be a minor amendment under point F. Before I ask if there's a move for the officer's recommendation, I read out what my proposed amendment is. If I can find it. Okay. Here it is. Okay. So under point F, operational projects, the amount detailed is in attachment confidential, subject to the inclusion of an additional allocation of $20,000 to facilitate events, community classes or grants for community groups to facilitate events. I did provide that in an email format to councillors this afternoon. On the back of your sheet that has been provided to you, the CEO has provided his response. And Mr. CEO, did you want to speak to your response?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. What I'd like to note is the fact that Council has 3 options at its discretion tonight in relation to the amendment. Reject the amendment as 1, 2, accept the amendment and find equivalent $20,000 savings from discretionary expenditure items, or 3, accept the amendment and reduce the current budget surplus by $20,000. Should the council determine to support the amendment as per option 3, which is to accept the amendment and to reduce the surplus, operating surplus by $20,000, then the administration requests that it is done so on the condition that the funding is allocated to existing community funding streams to facilitate community events and to the town's Relax program for new programs and for existing programs in high demand. This will negate the need for additional staff resources being allocated to hosting events and to hosting workshops with council to work out where we spend the money.
Okay, so councillors, I'm agreeable to the CEO's suggestion. So I'm fine with your suggestion. So that can be added into the subject to. Yep, okay. So that'll be an additional item added in after the. Okay, so subject to the inclusion of additional 20. So if I cross out that and replace your part after the 20,000. Okay, we're just going to get it up on the screen.
Under F. It's already under. Just check it. Okay. So it's already under F, under OPEX.
In the previous special operational project, it can be general budget because the amendment is proposed for operational projects attachment, but this is like a general allocation, so it can be allocated to in the general project budget.
So is it okay as operational project? Yeah. Okay, so we're fine.
It's not a specific operational project, so it allocates the budget into the OPEX, not the operational projects.
Okay. We'll deal with that outside the room. We'll deal with that outside the room. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Councillor Ames, would you like to read it out, item F, because I actually can't read it from here. Sorry.
I might get the minute clerk to do it so that they're also got a microphone as well.
I actually can't read it. Item F.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. F, operational projects, $1,079,575 as detailed on attachment 4, subject to the inclusion of additional allocation of $20,000 on the following condition. The funding is allocated to existing community funding streams to facilitate community events in the town's Relax program, for new programs and for existing programs in high demand.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So,
Madam Mayor, can we just scroll down to point 1? Oh no, statement to the year of, can I just ask the Director of Corporate Services, do we need to alter the statement of comprehensive income as showing a net surplus or not?
Yes.
Yes? So for the record, while we're up, that'll reduce by 20,000 in point A. Thank you. And I think the rest is correct because F is already saying operational projects is 1,079,575 plus 20,000.
yeah.
So I think we're covered. Thank you.
So, councillors, I will give councillors the opportunity to move the officer's recommendation as it exists, but I am highlighting the proposed amendment that I'm putting forward, which I propose to move, if there is no uptake of the officer's recommendation.
Just to confirm, this is just for point 1.
Yes. Okay. So, councillors, do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? So, councillors, do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation with the amendment that I've proposed for point F? Councillor Polifka and Councillor Ames is seconding. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move to officer's recommendation 2, which is rates, instalment payment arrangements, administration fees and interest. Now, I am not going to read all of that out. However, the administration have picked up that there might be some numbering that needs to be amended. And I'll ask the CEO to provide information on that, maybe.
Correct, Madam Mayor. If we could ask the Minute Secretary, to bring that back up on the screen.
So this is officer recommendation
We
2.
have to read out the revised residential rate in the dollar.
You do.
Mr. CEO, because we are adopting a different rate in the dollar than what we have advertised, we have to vote for that one as for the absolute majority.
Okay.
That's not what we're asking.
We're just asking about the numbering.
Oh, okay.
So is that where it goes?
So I don't believe anyone's proposing to change it. It's just that the numbering, we picked up that the numbering was not exactly correct.
So just there, thank you.
C, yep, that's right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so the C becomes
So where the...
pursuant to.
Okay, so A and B are correct, and then underneath B, the next paragraph that goes pursuant to section 6.45,
Should be C.
C should start there. And C continues over the page, right through to when you get to D. So C is the only part where that first paragraph should have been included.
So the paragraph, for the minutes secretary, the paragraph you've highlighted stays, but C disappears.
Well, no, C moves up to next to pursuant.
Yeah, I know, but we've done that. We just need
Yep.
to remove the C.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so councillors, are you all clear on what we're voting on for recommendation 2? Do I have a mover? Yep.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, and through you, this might be to the expert panel to the right of me. I believe that there was going to be a change in the rate. So for the lay individual within the community that might be listening to us, is there a change in regards to our rates for the upcoming financial year?
So, Mr CEO, this proposal does change the rate in the dollar to a lower amount for all categories. Now, Mr CEO, I believe that brings the percentage increase proposed in the advertising was 5.9% overall, and I believe it brings it down to 4.9%. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Do you wish to add anything to that?
We have included the revised rate in the dollars. Under the legislation, it allows us to adopt a different rate in the dollar to what we have advertised, as long as it's lower than what we have advertised. So we are compliant in that aspect.
Thank you.
Okay. So, councillors, any further questions? I'll ask for a mover. Councillor Plifka, a seconder. Councillor Ames. Do I have anyone against? Councillor John. We will enter into debate. Councillor Plifka.
Well, I'd like to thank the administration for the budget that they have prepared and the impact that that has had on the setting of rates. In the current inflationary environment, to come with a rate increase of 4.9% is somewhat exceptional, and I thank them for having done that. Tracks fairly closely to inflation. If one is to set a lower amount than that, then in real terms, you'd be collecting less rates and providing less services.
Councillor Ames.
No, I just reserve my right to respond, but also thank the administration for the hard work they've been doing for the last 3 to 4 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor John.
While I am supportive of the increase in rates on vacant land, I cannot justify the proposed rate increase in the context that in recent years the town has reduced its service delivery. Be that exiting from aged care, youth services, and support for learning drivers, or reduced service delivery hours, staffing, and as one of the feedback items said, verge mowing. In that context, I did some research, and in the 25-26 year, a property rated at $20,000 GRV, sorry, a $20,000 GRV, would have had a rates of 1,699. In Bayswater, it would have had 1,545, which creates a interesting situation on streets like Rugby Street, which one side of the street is paying potentially hundreds of dollars more to not be able to access the local leisure centre like their neighbours. Particularly with that cost of living and the amount of money we're saving on services and delivery and the fuel crisis and things like that, I don't think that we can continue to expect our community to pay more money for reduced service.
Councillors for the officer's recommendation. Okay, I'll enter debate. Interestingly, City of Bayswater have not yet accepted their increased rates. They are proposing a 5.5% increase in rates on their objects and reasons, as opposed to the town, which has listened to its community and reduced its rate in the dollar down from last year and has reduced that down to 4.9% increase. This is average to what many local governments are doing. I note that other councils where I did a comparison, the early ones who had published their objects and reasons were an average of 6% increase. So I congratulate the administration for finding some additional savings. Clearly, the town is we have a long-term financial plan. We are in the phase of asset renewal. We're an old town with old facilities, so yes, we are looking at asset renewal. We are a town that actually has a lot of services that are not provided by adjoining councils, or in fact, many councils at all in Perth. So bringing the council in line with service provision, I congratulate the administration in doing that, because it has provided us with the financial capacity in the millions of dollars to actually improve facilities, sporting facilities that actually provide services to thousands and thousands of sportsmen and women in the district and beyond. So I think it is a process. I think to turn around and indicate that we've exited from aged care, yes, so has almost every other council in the metropolitan area. There are many, many services which are no longer provided by councils. This council has been a good council to its ratepayers for many, many years, but it also means that this council has, to a degree, neglected the actual facilities that need renewal. So there are choices. When we're doing a budget, everything about a council and a councillor's role is choices. Our choices are, do we spend money on X or Y? How are we going to spend that? What's the biggest benefit to how many people? These are the choices that a council makes. I think this is a good budget. I think that the fact that we as a council have increased our reserve capacity to double what it was several years ago in anticipation of asset renewal right across the whole of the town. We're starting the big projects of Jubilee Reserve. We've already done stage 1 of Jubilee Reserve, which was $1.8 million worth of lighting and reticulation and water control. Now we're on to the next part of Jubilee Reserve, which is the infrastructure and the buildings. These are things to be proud of, and our council have done that through being fiscally responsible, and I would encourage the continuation of that process. So councillors, I'll finish up there. Councillors, any other councillors for or against? I'll go to Councillor Ames to see if you would like to come in now. Okay, Councillor Plivka.
I think Councillor Williams reserved his right, so he does have the ability to speak on this as well. But look, in any event, there are going to be boundaries to local governments. That's the nature of having local governments that can deal with the peculiarities of their local government region. The only solution to that is having one homogenous local government, say as they do in Brisbane for the whole of Perth. But look, I'm not advocating in favour of that. I think that loses a lot of the nuance that makes the different parts of Perth interesting. In terms of those boundary considerations, yes, there's always going to be some local governments that might set a lower rate. I think the majority are going to set a higher rate. But look, it's not a contest with other local governments in that regard. We're all in here trying to do the best for our residents. What is important is, does this do what it needs to do for our residents? And I'd say that it does. It does that without an increase which differs from the current levels of inflation that everybody is experiencing. And so dealing with the particulars of what we have to deal with in Bassendean, I think this is a very good budget. And I think once the other local governments, not that it's a contest, have set theirs, I think we will find that we're well within the benchmark and have probably outperformed a large number.
Okay, so councillors, I will put that to the vote. Please raise your hands, all those in favour. So we have Councillor Ames, Councillor Burke, Councillor Carter, Councillor Long, Councillor Plifka and myself, and against we have Councillor John. Okay. So councillors, we'll now move on to Officer Recommendation 3, which is on page 66, fees and charges. Again, I don't believe there is any additional information that you wish to provide on this, Mr. CEO. Okay, councillors, do you have any questions on fees and charges? Okay, do we have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Plifka, a seconder. Councillor Long. Do I have anyone against? Thank you. Councillor John, we'll enter into debate. Councillor Plifka?
I was hoping to speak to this without debate, in that I wanted to thank the administration for, particularly in relation to the building fees and charges, for keeping those largely stagnant. So those have not increased. The percentages applied to doing various things within the town, the approvals and the like, they haven't changed. So those rates having been preserved, the council certainly hasn't made building any more onerous.
Thank you. Councillor Long. No. Did you not second it? No? Okay, you reserve your right. Okay. Councillor John?
Just similar to my previous debate, I just don't think in the context it is reasonable to increase fees. That was all.
Okay, so I will enter into debate. Okay, so fees and charges are basically governed by, inflation and CPI. So there are many, many aspects to fees and charges which I think for many years this council did not increase fees and charges substantially. I would suggest to you that many of our fees and charges are lower than our compatriots in neighbouring councils. Certainly, I think that the fees and charges that have been provided to us are reasonable. I think that the fact that seniors groups and what have you receive a 70% discount on the published fees, and I think that is it community groups that receive a 50 or sporting groups receive a 50% discount on the fees and charges. So there are some aspects to the fees and charges which may not be immediately apparent to the public, but certainly the whole document is geared towards providing the best value for our community. Obviously, there are commercial rates cited, but then the discounts come into play for community members who are using the facilities, and also, again, We have community groups that cannot afford to pay their 1/3 share of CSRFF grants. So basically what the town does, we pick up the shortfall, and those groups pay a minor fee in their lighting to actually contribute to asset renewal into the future. There are many, many aspects to this which I have to congratulate the administration in bringing these things into play to enable our community to still get new infrastructure whilst not having to find every cent themselves, but to pay for it as they go. So in that respect, the fees and charges that we're providing are exceptionally good for many of our community groups. Thank you. Any other councillor would like to debate for or against? I will go to Councillor Polifka to close unless Councillor Long wishes. Okay, Councillor Polifka.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I would commend the officer's recommendation. All councillors are familiar, having had the opportunity through workshops and the like to familiarise themselves with the fees and charges. I'd simply rely on the fees and charges. That document speaks for itself in terms of having not increased the impost in terms of the rates that is imposed on various building services, and I think that's a positive thing which encourages building, which is what everybody would like to see.
Thank you. So, councillors, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So we have Councillor Ames, Councillor Burke, Councillor Carter, Councillor Long, Councillor Polifka and myself, and against Councillor John. Okay. So we'll now move on to Officer Recommendation 4, which is councillors' fees and allowances. Fairly straightforward. And I would ask Mr CEO, is there anything additional that you need to provide information-wise?
No, Madam Mayor, this is a typical way we adopt council fees and allowances every year.
Okay. And this is in line with the April determination. Okay, thank you. Okay, so councillors, we have an officer's recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Polifka, seconded Councillor Ames. Do I have anyone against? Thank you. Councillor Long will enter into debate. Councillor John.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As you mentioned in the exposition to this item, these rates are set by an independent body. It's the same across all local governments. That's the remuneration that is provided to councillors. I understand that that is something which, if councillors were so minded, they could simply elect not to receive, but we are voting on what is permitted to be paid to councillors by the local government. As I said, it's set by an independent body. It's consistent with the entire sector. It hasn't changed materially so from the last occasion, so I see no reason to disturb that.
Thank you. Councillor Ames, you wish to reserve your right. Councillor John.
Just in line with my previous debate, it would be self-interested of me to not oppose this alongside an increase to rates and an increase to fees and charges.
Thank you. Councillors, other councillors who wish to debate for or against? I'll enter into debate. So, we are a Band 3 council. I can't say that we are well paid at all. Certainly, I think many of us could earn higher remuneration doing other things in life. However, we're all here for our reasons. Many of us have an aspiration to see our town prosper and to actually do good works. There is a strong grounding in the people around this table who wish to actually have improvements across our district. I think the Salaries and Wages Commission, I think it was a 3%, 3.5% increase.
3.5, Madam Mayor.
3.5% increase across the board for local governments. Certainly as a Band 3, We are the poorer cousins of Band 2s and Band 1s. Certainly our cousins across the way that are Band 1 draw a lot more money for their salaries for councillors, mayors, deputy mayors, etc. So I don't think that we can be compared to our neighbours as being a drain on the public purse. We are certainly the councillor remuneration here is 19,000. To attend how many meetings and workshops and committee meetings per year? I can't think of how many I attend every year because I only add them up per month. I don't add them up per year because I might be tempted to think I could do better elsewhere. So I do think that this is a very modest increase in fees and charges. And certainly councillors provide a lot of their own material, they use their own cars, they actually often don't draw down on petrol vouchers, they are very, very conservative in what they ask for in this council. So I would ask for councillors to support this. Councillors, any further councillors wish to debate for or against? Okay, Councillor Polifka, did you wish to close?
Yeah, look, there's an independent body so that we don't have to have these discussions where you'd have to justify what should or shouldn't be paid to councillors. We don't do it for the money, do it for the love of the game and of improving our local government area in which we've chosen to live. So simply we'll be following that independent statutory body's recommendation.
Okay, so councillors, could I please have a show of hands, all those in favour? So we have Councillor Ames, Councillor Burke, Councillor Carter, Councillor Long, Councillor Polifka and myself, and those against, we have Councillor John. Okay, so councillors, we now move to Officer Recommendation 5, superannuation payments for councillors. Mr CEO, did you wish to provide any additional information here?
No, Madam Mayor, we've covered it at the workshops. It's a discretionary opportunity for Tier 3s and Tier 4 councils, of which we are a Tier 3. And it's not incumbent on, if this gets voted up tonight, then it's not incumbent on every councillor to accept it if they do not so wish to.
Okay. So, councillors, any questions? Do I have a mover? Councillor Ames, seconder. Councillor Carter. Do I have anyone against? Councillor John. We will enter into debate. Councillor Ames.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Look, the payment that we've come across today for elected members, from my perspective, isn't about increasing remuneration. It's about ensuring fairness, recognising the significant commitment and responsibilities associated with serving our community that we're all have been discussing this evening and obviously for many meetings in the past. Many councillors balance their council duties alongside employment, family commitments, personal obligations, and providing superannuation brings local government into line with modern workplace expectations and acknowledges a valuable contribution elected members make to good governance and community leadership, and also thinks about their future, not just where they are at this point in time. Importantly, this initiative is already being adopted by many local governments across Western Australia, reflects a contemporary, equitable approach to elected members. And as the CEO rightly identified, this is an option for councils moving forward. So, if we are looking at figures across the budget, which was very minimal, this can obviously be reduced furthermore as well. So, thank you very much.
Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The superannuation provision has been worked out for several years because it's only fair that people who are on council, who have families and responsibilities and also have superannuation accounts themselves, are acknowledged and join in the great scheme. And as someone who won't be accepting the superannuation, because I'm retired, I think it's important to not acknowledge that we do have younger people with other responsibilities that have superannuation accounts, and this is part of what they do for the community.
Thank you. Councillor John?
Yep, in line with my previous debates, but also further, councillors are not paid a wage. It's a fee or an allowance. It's not a job. It's something that we choose to do on top of that. If you wish to increase your superannuation package, that's something you can do through voluntary contribution, and many other, sole traders and self-contractors do that anyway. So it's I don't think it's reasonable to expect the ratepayer to foot the bill for a super contribution.
Councillors for?
So what is superannuation for? Well, it's to remove that cost from the Commonwealth Government in old age. Superannuation is to replace a pension. If somebody's occupying their time, whether it's with a job or this for which they receive a fee, it's still consuming their time. That's time where they need to be accumulating an amount that can be put away for a later date so that that person doesn't become a burden on the federal government purse by demanding large amounts of pension in old age. That's why we have superannuation. Brilliant scheme, helps the government, helps people involved, and because it's tailored in the case of someone's job, it ensures that somebody has in retirement comparable amounts of income to what they enjoyed throughout their working life. So the two go together. I wouldn't seek to disturb that regime. And as I said, superannuation is not. It's to provide for one in old age, so that the government doesn't have to do so.
Any other councillors for or against? Councillor Ames, do you wish to close?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, I was just doing some calculations. Look, there's been a lot of positive comment in regards to this particular officer's recommendation and some very constructive points as well that may obviously go against this. But I personally, myself, and this is me being an individual, I like to ensure, like Councillor Lithgow has said, would like to put less stress on the community moving forward. And this is one opportunity that I feel that councillors have the opportunity to do that. Also discretionary as well regarding if they would like to take up this opportunity within the town of Bassendean. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, councillors, I will put it to the vote. All those in for, please raise your hands. So we have Councillor Ames, Councillor Carter, Councillor Long, Councillor Polifka, and myself. And against, we have Councillor
Burke is against.
Councillor Burke and Councillor John. Yep. Okay, thank you. Okay, we move to Officer Recommendation 6, which is materiality. And again, I'd ask Mr. CEO, do you have anything that you wish to add to this?
No, Madam Mayor, pretty straightforward, and we're suggesting no change to previous years.
Okay. So, councillors, if there are no questions, do I have a mover? Councillor Polifka, seconded Councillor Ames. Do I have anyone against? Okay, I'll declare that carried. Thank you, one and all. So, councillors, we have no motions for which the previous notice has been given. We've got no announcements of notice of motion for the next meeting, and I don't believe we do. We have no urgent business. This moves us to item 16, confidential business. Could I have a mover to go behind closed doors? Councillor Polifka, seconded Councillor Ames. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. We'll go behind closed doors. One microphone, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will just advise that the resolution for item 13.1 was unanimously supported by all councillors, and that resolution reaffirms that council reaffirms the December 2025 resolution in relation to 1 Surrey Street. Okay. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I will declare this meeting closed at 8 minutes. The next ordinary council meeting will be held on Tuesday, the July, will be wrong date. Sorry, I'll just look up the... So July 28th. Starting at 6 p.m. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all your hard work. That is the budget for 26-27 passed, and thank you all. Thank you. So.